What's that marina life like down there? I know it's a ton of boats down there. It's a really popular port. Tell us what it's like to be down there.
Kenosha is actually pretty good. It's we always make a joke. It's like a campground. You know, everybody's kind of hangs out a lot. It's I'd say for the most part very friendly. Everybody talks. We're separated a little bit. There's 3 docks, but everybody's pretty vocal, you know, on the radio and stuff, helping each other out. I would say we're, you know, as far as ports that get along, I'd say we're one of the ones that really most everybody gets along good. So yeah. It's nice to be able to say that in a port.
Yeah, so it's one of those kind of, we're all buddies, we're all going to work together. But I think growing that business as kind of a charter community is important. You know, if people come over there and they're not catching fish, or people come over there and they hear you guys barking at each other on the radio, that's not a good experience for a charter customer. So tell us about kind of how you guys work together to make it so that when the customers come over, they have a good time.
Well, one of the things, you know, a lot of it is the attitude. There's really no secret. The secret is, if you want to be the Lone Ranger, you'll be the Lone Ranger. You'll be by yourself, and that's kind of one of the things that's nice, is that we all kind of, when it's tough, we all scatter, and when we know there's fish in a thing, we all work together, so we're not on top of each other and trying to work the school or the group or the area the best we can. I think a lot of the lake is, you know, that part of the lake has changed a lot. I think people are much more open, you know, nowadays than it was in the beginning. In the beginning, no one talked about anything, and it's probably more like, you know, from inland lake bass fishing. You know, there's a spot, there's always one bass, and if you think you have the secret spot out here, you're definitely lost. The secret spot moves every 5 minutes, so it's kind of a joke when somebody's trying to keep a secret. It's like, oh, really? It didn't last long, and then when you get found out that you're keeping secrets, that doesn't work good for you. But you know what? I think it says a lot about the whole industry, or not the industry, but the mentality of the sport fisherman nowadays. You know, it's not a I'm against you as much as it's a pretty big collaborative effort all the time. You know, the internet obviously changed a lot of that. You know, like we're talking about fishing, and you know, I think it's the whole mentality's changed. It makes it better for everybody. You know, the worst thing, you know, for me, I want to see guys that come, you know, when the launch ramp is full, it's nice to hear everybody who's catching fish and everybody had a good time, but that keeps our sport growing. More interest, better for everybody. And, you know, eventuality, that's what keeps people coming, is the good fishing and good information and the freedom, you know, that you'll get with the people that share it. So I think that's a big part of it. I don't know that Kenosha is unique in that way alone, though. I think a lot of that, like I said, the culture of sport fishing on the big water is become that.
Yeah, I agree with you. It's something, you know, a lot of the work I do is also in the ice fishing world. And ice fishing is similar to what you were talking about earlier. Is if somebody finds that bounty of jumbo perch or something somewhere, like, it's pretty hush-hush. And you don't want people putting pictures of that on the internet. That's not a good thing for you. And you're probably going to get blasted on the forum if you put that up there. Yeah. But, you know, with the salmon fishery being a fishery where these fish are turning over every 3 or 4 years, and those currents, those massive currents, are pushing fish around, and everything's kind of moving around. And like you say, the fish that you're fishing right now, if you go out tomorrow, those fish are going to be somewhere else in a month.
Right.
So things are always changing. I think that's part of it too. Is that you know, we've got fish that are their life cycle is pretty short. And those hot spots, like you say, are always changing. And that's got to be a challenge fishing out of the port that you're fishing out of, with all of the structure that you have there. Tell us a little bit about kind of how you make your morning decisions on where you're going to go.
Well, right now the morning decision is made pretty much on water temperature. You know, I'm looking at the surface temperature, and, you know, here in the recent days we've had a big change. We had a really strong north wind. And Tuesday before the wind, it was flat, calm Monday and Tuesday, and the water was actually starting to creep up in temperature quite a bit. And you could see that, you know, that little bit of the surface was getting warmed by the sun because we didn't have any wind, and it was getting, you know, over the course of 5 hours or 6 hours, it went almost 4 degrees, you know, in a large area. well, that water doesn't disappear, it goes somewhere. It doesn't really cool down again. And so my first thing is I'm always watching water temperature right now to start. And where we start seeing it drop, even though it's all cold enough for them, there's definitely they're going to be on a break. We're going to have a break set up somewhere right now. That and the bait, wherever the bait, where we start seeing a lot of bait. We here in the Kenosha area, we've had bait inside and in big schools, alewives are coming in to spawn. But once you get out deeper, we're not seeing the big schools, but all the fish have alewives in them. So they're there. But like right now, the biggest thing I'm going to do is look at water temperature to start today. Once summer comes, that's the advantage of being out a lot. Where you've been, where you're going to go, as far as what you did yesterday evening, yesterday morning. I always talk about first thing in the morning. A lot of times everybody, they think, oh, I got to get out in the dark to just get the bite. A lot of times getting out in the dark is where I do most of my learning for the day, because that bait's going to be, it's going to be off the bottom. You're going to see that it's there. So later in the day, you have that confidence to say, hey, I'm going back to 150 feet of water, or I'm going, I saw it in 100. It didn't leave, probably, it went very far, it went down. And that's going to give you that confidence to stay there. A lot of it, though, because you're out a lot, you know where they were yesterday, what they were doing. It's funny, a lot of people think kings only bite first thing in the morning. Well, first time in the morning is a great time to catch kings. But about 10 o'clock, they're hungry again. 10 to 1 is a great time to catch kings. High sun, that they've sat there, they had their food, they went and sat around, or loafed, I guess you would call it, and then they're getting hungry again. So it's the advantage of, I don't know if I want to call it experience, because you could learn so much in 5 days straight about what's going on for the 6th day. So yeah, that's about how I approach it.
So how does a guy that's a weekend angler, is going to go out and come out maybe Friday after work, maybe fish Saturday and Sunday, how do they kind of put that puzzle together with the time that they have on the water?
I would say nowadays the easiest thing you do is pick up your phone and call Lake Michigan Angler. Hey, Rob, what's been going on? Hey, Michael, what's been going on? Hey, the guys have been catching them here, here. And a lot of it is, you can follow the trend now with the internet so well. And if you're going to go on Friday, or you should really start looking Monday, Tuesday, and Wednesday for the information. That'd be the easiest thing. In the Kenosha area, once we hit summer, the obvious place is one of our main drop-off is about 4 miles offshore. It drops from 50 to 90 in about a quarter of a mile. And that keeps going down from there. That'd be an obvious. Once we have warm water, when I say warm, it's in the 60s, all the way down, to 50 or 60 feet down, then that's going to be a definite place to take a look to start. And then start working from there. Yeah. A lot of people like to see where the boats are and run to the boats. That sometimes doesn't really pan out that well. A lot of times more boats in an area means they all drew each other to themselves. It's more of and especially with salmon, they don't like pressure. Being alone has a lot to do with your catch sometimes.
Yeah, and that's something when you and I talked last time, we talked about fishing in that deep water and then that blue water area where you're kind of getting away from people. What are some advantages to doing that, to getting out there and getting away from the crowd? I mean, obviously, you're going somewhere where the pressure isn't there, but you're also kind of, exploring new areas that maybe you should or shouldn't be. So how do you target those spots?
Well, the biggest thing, now it comes down to some electronics. Paying attention to what you see. And the one kind of unique thing is if you're going through, I always like to say clean water, you're the first one through it. You don't need a lot of marks to get it. If they're a little active, they're gonna take a look. But if 4, 5, 6, 10, 15 boats have kind of been through there and you see fish, a lot of times you can see they're a little bit negative. That's the one thing that is nice about exploring a lot of times, is that if you're going through water that has not been fished and you're seeing fish, or you're trending, okay, they've been at 50, 60, now we can start putting more emphasis in, what level we're seeing them at. A lot of times you don't need a lot of them, because the ones that you go by, you're the only one there, and it's how would you say, like a more natural or a pure presentation than that crowd, sometimes that crowd mentality. People love to fish around other boats, so I don't understand that. But I mean, I'm not to say that when they're all piled into an area where there's structure is something that you might want to take a look. You know, there's something going on. So
yeah. Jared, do you have anything for Arnie?
Yeah, so being up in Kenosha, years back, me and Rob were on a kayak. We're fishing, right outside of Pikes Creek, and we were into Kings Lake. What sets that up where during the summer the Kings go shallow?
Well, the biggest thing is temperature. The one thing nowadays, the one that probably hurts that the most is the clarity of the water. So if you can get, especially if we get a lot of rain and that river's flowing good and there's a little bit of, it's clouded the water up, like when you always say it looks a little silvery, it's got that tinge to it, that, and that temperature's cool, there's going to be kings there. It's at the end of the year, that's their natural instinct. They're going home. They know where home is. So that's probably the biggest thing, is that when those fish have staged for a little while and we get the right conditions, they make that move. People always think that fish get lost. They don't get lost. They know where they're going. Their instinct is much too strong.
So when do you start using the J plugs for those staging fish in Kenosha?
Kenosha, typically the only time we really use J plugs heavy is when we're on the beach. We call the beach inside of 15 feet of water. So that area you guys can fish with the kayaks and that around the river. Or in Kenosha we have the Pike. Racine has the River. Racine's river flows much heavier, so that's typically it sets up sooner a lot of times, and there's a little higher volume of fish. The bigger the river system, the Milwaukee River, another one it's a big river putting out a lot of water. They seem to set up there much sooner.
Very good. Just tell us kind of how that fishery sets up throughout the year. I mean, I know it's a big coho deal early in the year, and then it kind of progresses. And we just talked about Al. Al was just down here, and he was telling us about the mixed bag that he's fishing. There's just always different stuff. You can go out and get Lakers if the Kings aren't around. Just tell us a little bit about kind of how the seasonalities work in the year.
Well, in this area, the southern area, we're catching that coho migration early, so a lot of the times we're just set up for coho fishing. And if anybody was out in April in this area, they know that you couldn't have found a better time to coho fish. And there was no reason to look for anything else. The bite was so good. As the water starts to warm and these fish move offshore, when I say offshore, we were fortunate that they were inside of 30 feet of water for a long period of time. Again, that water was a little bit cloudy, a little bit murky. And a lot of time you get that from the spring, a lot of the runoff and rain that we get. Then we start seeing more variety once we start moving offshore. Now the thing is, we get stuck, and I say we, the charter industry, get stuck on these schools of cohos sometimes. And if they're that good, you really are messing with too much else. There could be kings there, but kings like the king baits, not coho baits all the time. Right. When people are talking about, I caught 7 kings on red dodgers or orange dodgers and peanut flies, well, there's probably a lot more kings there. If you'd have been running king baits, you'd have probably done a heck of a lot better on them. And then as we're coming into June, that's like Al probably said, that's one of the times we see our biggest mixed bag. There's still plenty of cohos, but the good thing is we're typically offshore with other species, with steelhead, with kings, with lake trout. The only one we really don't see a lot of is brown trout, although early in April there were a lot of browns around. And as we start losing the cohos, they're kind of dispersing to the north and out to the east, then that's when we start targeting the other fish in the water column. That's when we'll see a lot more kings and lake trout. It's not that they're not there. Sometimes it's I don't think we're targeting them as heavily. You want to be successful. Sometimes that's all rated on a number. 5 is good, 15 is better.
Right.
So that it's kind of the best game in town. We'll get stuck on a little bit.
And when you go to that kind of multi-species spread, you're trying to cover the water column. What does that look like for you on the back of your boat?
What it looks like now is kind of a mess. It's funny, we were talking about this with wire divers. Lately I've been running a wire diver on the outside and mono on the inside. That would be the mono diver would be a shallow one, obviously targeting coals. The wires, I actually have king baits on, but they've been catching coals, but that they have been grabbing some kings. And that would be my wire on the outside and my mono on the inside. And on the other side, I have a wire on the outside and a Power Pro on the inside. I don't know why, it's just kind of the way I've been fishing it. And it seems like that low diver, the one that's closer to the boat, even though it's down, it seems like that one really wants to get hot or like start picking fish up, and I can start moving my booms around, my side riggers down, kind of moving to work a little bit with that diver. When my outside diver on the other side's working, I can't really match it as well. So it's kind of, it's that whole thing about the dynamic, the way your spread looks under the water, and drawing the fish to you, getting the fish, getting them interested, and then trying to figure out which one they're gonna hit. A lot of times with that diver like that on like 1.5 setting, and it's on wire and it's a big diver, it's pretty close to that side rigger, and I think a lot of times, or even your shoot, but it's like that. It's not so passive aggressive. It's an aggressive fish. Came up, looked and see it, grabbed the next one there as the boat was moving away from it. Whereas the other one's kind of picking them off, I think, as they're coming to the spread. And and like I said, we're still trying to add those goals in. We're still trying to catch steelhead at the same time. So that's why we got this variety. You couldn't, from deep to shallow, it's got to look so like randomly erratic. But I think that's kind of what I'm going after for the variety. And lately my center rigger, my shoot, has been my deepest. But it is a lot of times, and that one seemed to going both ways. It's picking off some lake trout and some kings. When that one starts getting active, a lot of times I'll dump one of my wires down further and further and further because they're coming to look at it. So that's how I adjusted. I started adjusting then.
Well, Captain Arnie, appreciate you coming on. Appreciate you making the trip and hanging out here tonight with us.
Thank you.
Captain Arnie does a ton of seminars too, so if you want to learn from him, you're all over the place, especially in the preseason. But somebody wants to go fishing with you, how do they reach you?
Easiest thing, look up Southport Charter Service, Kenosha, Wisconsin, and I'll pop up.
All right.
All right, thank you.
Thank you very much.
Thank you, Captain Arnie.